Tom, of course, there's a big thing happening the week after Thanksgiving here in the US, and that is Amazon Web Services reInvent Conference. Now, this is one of the largest tech conferences around, and from the photos, it looks like it's pretty well attended, taking over most of the Vegas Strip. Also, frankly, there's a lot of news coming out. And in fact, since the conference is going on right now, it's a little hard to keep up with all the news that's coming. In fact, just to give you a taste, I want to roll through some of the things that I'm keeping an eye out that we're really kind of not going to have time to talk about today. So some of the things that I've noticed, so we've got AWS Glue 4.0 and Glue for Ray in preview. We've got new general purpose compute optimized and memory optimized EC2 instances with higher packet processing performance. We've got C7GN, R7IZ, HPC 7G, INF2 instances. We've got Marketplace for containers supporting direct deployment on EKS. We've got a new HPC 6 ID EC2 instance type that is optimized for HPC. We've got AWS Supply Chain, which allows you to mitigate risks in your supply chain, new management tools there as well. We've got CloudWatch, Internet Monitor. We've got GA of AWS local zones in Buenos Aires, Copenhagen, Helsinki, and Muscat. We've got AWS Verified Access, which is a VPN-less secure network access. We've got VPC Lattice, AWS KMS External Key Source, or XKS, AWS Inspector with Lambda function vulnerabilities, AWS verified permissions, and of course in storage we've got failover clusters for Amazon S3 multi-region access points. We've got EFS elastic throughput, Redshift supporting AWS backup, and AWS automated failback for disaster recovery. Really just a ton of stuff being announced. And frankly, we could spend months digging into all these announcements because basically AWS does everything. But let's focus in on a couple of things.
You're right. I mean, that was an exhaustive list, and it's basically Christmas for anybody who works on AWS. But you did mention HPC, and one of the big announcements is around that because Graviton 3E is finally here. What does that mean? It's a CPU that's designed to accelerate floating point and vector math. Boy, that sounds exciting, doesn't it? Maybe not for you, but if you run an HPC cluster, you are really excited because that's exactly what they've been wanting. They want a CPU architecture that accelerates those areas, which are where they spend a lot of their time working on. The custom unit is going to be aimed at those HPC clusters. And the idea is they want to eke out every last little drop of performance for anyone running life sciences workloads or modeling software. Now, at the same time, Amazon introduced Nitro version 5, which is the latest iteration of their groundbreaking DPU. Stephen, I know that you followed a lot of the Graviton stuff. Why is 3E an exciting thing for HPC people?
Yeah, 3E is exciting because of the couple of things that you mentioned. So essentially, just as a reminder, the Graviton CPUs that AWS offers are based on ARM, the ARM processor instruction set. And ARM has historically been sort of marginalized in floating point workloads. Essentially, floating point and vector math has never been their strong point. That's really what you've used x86 for. And frankly, Intel and now AMD have really done a lot to bring accelerators onto the x86 platform with AVX 512 and all these other offload instructions that they have. Graviton 3E is cool because essentially what we've got is an ARM chip that can maybe not keep up with some of the things on the x86 side for vector and floating point, but at least hold its own. And in fact, maybe even do better. The Amazon is promising that Graviton 3E delivers, maybe anywhere between 12% and 35% better performance on various compute functions. And that may not sound like a lot, but it's a lot when you consider that means that you probably need 1/3 fewer CPUs, and CPUs are expensive. Of course, they've also announced this HPC 7G instance type, which brings a lot of this stuff into the HPC space. And HPC 7G and Graviton 3E works really well with Nitro 5. So Nitro 5 is also promising to double performance and overall and give a lot better performance per watt, a lot better packet processing and so on. Nitro 5, I'll remind you, is the latest generation in the AWS Nitro family, which is the sort of the prototypical DPU. So if you think about DPUs and offload cards, which are now finding their way into enterprise computing and all sorts of things, well, all of this comes with Nitro, and frankly, Amazon is continuing to invest in Nitro and continuing to do more with it. All of this is to say that essentially we have a sort of a next generation HPC and compute platform here that shows what Amazon is capable of doing in custom designed hardware, but specifically around ARM and DPU, which are two things that I think that Amazon is really going to try to separate themselves from the pack, the cloud computing pack, using. So overall, it's exciting, it's interesting, it has relevance in the enterprise because a lot of this technology is going to come down, and frankly, it shows us that ARM and DPU are relevant in a broader set of workloads than we would have thought.
Also, I will say, don't sleep on that DPU announcement, because if you actually go back, Amazon's been building platforms and software applications to run on these things for the last several years. They are enabling a lot of things we didn't think were possible, because they have the ability to say, we're going to run an ARM CPU on this device that can handle all the basic processing, but then we have another ARM CPU enclosure that's handling something very, very specific. As I was digging through some of the announcements that we read off, I realized that Amazon's actually doing something really crazy inside of their cloud. And I was going to write a little bit more about that and share it with the community later. But if you think back to the way things looked even just 10 years ago, the things that Amazon's going to do with these GPUs, with Nitro specifically, we would have never thought possible. And so that's why I think it's so exciting to see them revving so many of these products as we go along, because they've got talented people building good applications that leverage that value. Now, the downside is that if you start writing things that require Nitro, it makes it pretty sticky that you have to stay in Amazon. So I'm kind of curious to see how many people adopt this when you've got, you know, multi-cloud, super cloud type stuff going on over here with the desire to make it go as fast as possible.